Hello, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Elements of Success. As always, I am delighted to be here with you, and today, kind of delving even deeper into the depths of our exploration of the element of earth and how this relates to our stories. Just in case this is somehow your first time seeing me here in this series, first of all, welcome. But second of all, just as a quick reminder to those of you tuning in, or if it is your first time, I'm Safriana Luna, the Queer Spirit Guide. I am a licensed trauma therapist, a spiritual mentor, and author, speaker, CEO, and I am ultimately a druid. Druid is probably my most important self-identifier, and part of what this series is all about is how we can support ourselves through the natural elements. So I just want to recap really quick of where we've been and where we're going today, because in episode 3, we were really we were kicking off our Earth series here, and we were starting to look at how our stories, how our personal stories, what I called our personal mythology, actually shape our reality across sort of our 5 layers or our 5 bodies of being. So physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and communally. And then in episode 4, we were really diving into my concept of what I call trauma north, which is how we circle back around to these points again and again and again, unfortunately, where we do experience traumatic triggers or that sort of old material coming up. And there are opportunities for us to heal ultimately, to enter a new way of being. So today we're going to be going even deeper into the underground root system of limiting beliefs that end up keeping us stuck. So there are stories that we tell ourselves, and then there are beliefs that are our unconscious attempting to make sense of things. And those unconscious assumptions actually feed the stories. So the story is a little bit more active. The belief is really more under the surface and obviously can cause a lot of problems. So limiting beliefs today is our major topic, and I really want to make sure we're going in well defined on what this is all about. And actually, before I even continue, I want to just say I pulled this card today. So the Earth Star Chakra card, I asked, like, what do I need as I'm going in to teach today? And this card came out, and it makes so much sense because today really is an initiation of sorts. This topic is an initiation of sorts in that it's inviting us to really get real about what's under the surface, what's running underneath the surface. And it really is these limiting beliefs. So, limiting beliefs are unconscious assumptions, as I said, about what you, others, or the world makes possible. And by makes possible, I really mean makes impossible. So limiting beliefs are these constraints. They are limitations. They are guardrails. They are sets of beliefs that are keeping us from pursuing our fullest potential. And unfortunately, like the root system of trees, most of it's under the surface. It's in the subconscious. You don't see it until you really start to bring it to the surface. And that's part of this initiation that this card is getting into. Is it is an initiation to be willing to dive into that shadow material and start to really be with the reality of what we've been carrying around with us. So, our limiting beliefs are formed through our experiences. Of course, they are our nervous system's attempt to keep us safe based on past events that we've experienced. But when we are carrying around those beliefs on the subconscious level, unfortunately, a lot of the time, they end up running the show in ways we might not even consciously realize. And they're running our body on autopilot. So we don't want this. We don't want to be on autopilot. We don't want to feel out of control. And again, stories are what you think. Beliefs are what your body knows to be true, that's run on autopilot in the subconscious. And then they really do constrain how much growth feels safe in your system, how much healing feels safe in your system. And so if you have a belief that you have to be healing all the time, that there's one right way to heal. If you have a belief that healing is scary or bad or wrong, you're probably not going to be doing any healing. And the truth is, we don't have to heal all the time. We're not expected to be in healing 24/7. But if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to see what's there under the surface in the dark, in the murk, then we're doing ourselves a great disservice ultimately. So I would really love to encourage you to not feel so scared by these limiting beliefs, but to get curious. Can I go in? Can I figure them out so that I can begin to install some new beliefs? So I mentioned they heal, your healing journey gets stalled. It gets stuck when you have a limiting belief in there that says, this isn't possible for me. I can't heal. I can't do that. That's too much, etc. So, just as some examples, limiting beliefs can narrow possibilities. Talked about limiting, right? Literally limiting, putting constraints on. So, if we're constantly running a belief under the surface that I always fail, there's no point in doing anything because I'm always going to fail, then your brain is going to begin to expect small outcomes. Your brain is going to begin to expect that you're going to fail. And so you are going to install that on the subconscious level. It's going to become a part of that root system within. And you're going to start running the show based on that subconscious limiting belief. So we want to be aware of these. Triggers. Yeah, triggers are here for a reason. We talked about trauma north last time, and triggers are there because something bad did happen, and our nervous system is trying to flag us down and say, hey, don't let that happen again. This is really awful. But when our trauma north is hitting constantly, it could be an opportunity to heal. But many of us are holding limiting beliefs that a trigger is a setback. If I get triggered, I'm doing something wrong. I haven't healed enough, etc. No, it's just an opportunity to look at things again, as we talked about last time. Limiting beliefs might block resources. So I have to do it alone. I can't be in community. Community is not safe. I don't have anyone to talk to about this, right? We can have beliefs that literally keep us from receiving help, and that's not something we want to do. If we want to be well connected and well resourced, we need to have this interconnectedness with one another. So, again, if we're running a belief under the surface that people aren't safe, we're really going to struggle. Small setbacks could feel like major failures or proof that you can't heal, that you can't overcome challenges if you have beliefs around that. And limiting beliefs can sabotage your progress. So ultimately, so many things limiting beliefs can do to us, but they're kind of like these underground anchors that are dragging us down and keeping us tethered to ways that we used to be. So why would we not want to break free from that, right? Why would we not want to install new beliefs? Especially when we get into the fact that these beliefs start to live in our bodies. So I've talked about this a little bit in prior episodes. I'm going to talk about it over and over and over and over again in different ways because, again, I'm a licensed trauma therapist. Trauma is my bread and butter, if you will. I don't love saying that, but that is my specialty. That is my passion in helping people through. And trauma lives, of course, in the stories, it lives in the beliefs, and it lives in the tissues of our body. So limiting beliefs can absolutely become encoded in our nervous systems and create chronic activation, that anxiety state, that overwhelm of I need to figure this out all the time, or it can create a chronic state of depression and shutdown. The world is too much. I need to push it away. When we are holding limiting beliefs, especially around like safety, we might feel tension in our body. We might literally grip or be holding ourselves tight. That can happen in our shoulders, our jaw, our stomach, literally any of our muscles. Sometimes I wake up with like really tight leg muscles when I'm really stressed. So it's important to listen to the body and hear, sense, see, notice the different places where the body is trying to get our attention. If we feel like, things aren't enough, we're not enough, there's nothing we can possibly do, we might notice breathing restrictions. It literally becomes physically hard to breathe. We can collapse over ourselves. I've seen so many people collapse over themselves and kind of have this very small posture, this small essence to their being as they're caving in because they feel unworthy or they don't want to be seen or they're scared or any other, set of beliefs that's running the show. Unfortunately, we do see that these chronic belief-based stresses and chronic negative um, self-care, all of that does have immune system, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like negative impacts on the immune system. And it's scary to think that mentally we can think ourselves into such a state, or that we can hold something subconsciously mentally that can influence our state in such a way. But that is the reality of being human. That's how our systems work. And of course, cellular memory seems to be a thing, and our cells will remember states that they've been in. So if we're holding that chronic stress through a belief, because we don't feel safe enough, lovable, etc., that can have a ripple effect on what switches are being turned on in our genes, what our cells are doing, how they're repairing, all of it. It's a huge impact. It's a lot to think about. So we ultimately, again, just want to work on tending these inner belief systems that are potentially holding us back or harming us. So I just want to really drive home how these things show up, some examples where we're disconnecting from the earth. The whole thing about elements of success, right, is you tuning into the natural elements, what's very tangible and real in the world, as well as what is beautifully alive in energy, in magic, in alchemy, whatever you want to call it. And so we've been exploring these different lessons from the earth and how the earth informs us. And now I really want to talk about the beliefs that start to separate us from this larger interconnected web of life, disconnect us from being in relationship with the earth and others. So, productivity over being. I'm only valuable when I'm producing. I know this belief inside and out. I have been working diligently, probably for about 2.5 years now, actively on working out this belief and getting it out of my subconscious, because we have all experienced this overproduction culture that expects us to be constantly producing, constantly driving, constantly moving towards more profit, more luxury, more whatever. So if we're believing that subconsciously, we're going to overwork, we're going to overgive, we're going to do too much, we are going to burn out. And God, do I know it? Because again, this is one of my big ones that I've struggled with. Individuality over community. There is such a truth in Dick Schwartz's teaching on legacy burdens, that we have a major legacy of individualism, like a really unhealthy individualism that says, like, I need to do it all alone. If I ask for help, I'm weak. I've failed. This legacy of the expectation that we can somehow achieve everything without help. Got to let that go. It's super disconnected from earth. How does nature work, right? We were laughing the other day in the backyard because we have these black raspberries, and the black raspberries weren't there a few years ago. So, how did they get there? We didn't plant them. Oh, well, a bird probably ate them somewhere else and came along and pooped it in the yard. And now we have a blackberry plant or a black raspberry plant. That's how nature works, right? Nature is biodiverse, it's interconnected. The circle of life is on display. That is not individuality. Each individual has a function and a role and a uniqueness, but it's not over the grandness of community around. Then we have the belief that we need to be linear instead of cyclical. So, this is a huge part of Trauma North, that belief that healing should be faster. We've recognized our trigger. We've talked about our trigger. We went to therapy for our trigger. We should be over it, right? And in reality, that we're going to circle back around to our Trauma North again and again and again. It's just that it's going to be fewer and farther between. It's going to get less and less. And over time, it will improve, right? That's the cyclical nature of it opening up into a grander spiral. And that's again, the way nature's designed. We have seasons for a reason. The idea that we need to be mind over body, we have so over identified with our mental thinking body that we have learned to ignore a lot of the physical symptoms, nudges, trying to get our attention of what's really going on in here. And we believe that we should be able to think our way out of our feelings, that we should be able to problem solve and logic our way out of discomfort. And that is just not how it works. So we need to come back to the body, back to the root, the foundation, the core, and know that the body is trying to get our attention too. And then being perfect over human, so many people struggle with perfectionism, right? But nature is not perfect. I mean, it is. I'm going to backtrack there. Nature is perfect. It's perfectly imperfect. It works, it runs, it displays these beautiful biodiverse cycles and systems and all of these interconnected plants and animals. Nothing's really perfect though, right? Like out there in my garden right now, the deer have come through and nommed half the tops of the plants off at the back of the field. There have been bugs all over our runner beans, and so the leaves are full of holes, but it's still growing, right? Like it's not perfect, but it's still growing. And so that's what it means to be human too, is that we're constantly growing. Instead of believing any mistake or any flaw means that we are ourselves fundamentally flawed and no good. And then finally, speed over seasons. We live in a society that wants us to do things so fast. Oh, I know right now here in my own life, like where I am exactly right now, I'm wrapping up a manuscript and there is this, like I want to get it done right now. But then I take the step back and I go, seasons, right? Okay. So we had the winter, we had the slow, the daydreaming, and then the spring we started to plant seeds. We started to maybe write a little bit. And then summer was the really full draft phase. And now I'm really in the harvest phase where I'm winding down and I'm putting all the things I've done in my basket to now store for the winter again, right? That's kind of the feeling is I'm harvesting. I'm literally getting ready to share this with the world, harvest the fruits of my labor. And there's still this like needs to go faster. So we all have this rushing thing in our society that we all need to work on because we're constantly trying to go super fast. And so we might have a belief like everybody's doing things faster than me, they heal faster than me. They're, look how far ahead they are on their goals and I'm back here. Like we love to compare, and we really have this issue with wanting to be full speed ahead. So we can really relearn, and support our subconscious in beginning to invite back in some new beliefs. Again, not going to stay here super duper long, but your body knows your beliefs better than your mind. I'm going to reemphasize this all the time because it's true. You have somatic intelligence, in case you're not familiar with the word somatic, because it's kind of become like a buzz term out in the healing world lately. Somatic literally just means like felt in the body, in the physicality. So your somatic intelligence is your body's intelligence, your nervous system holding a map of your beliefs. Your body scanning, like body scanning is a practice of literally kind of just checking yourself head to toe. You just sort of start from the top, scan down, almost like you're scanning yourself with one of those little metal detector bars at the airport. You're scanning yourself for any areas of tension, any tingling, any ease, any warmth or cool, or just anything that feels a little out of the ordinary to be able to ask, like, is this something? Is there a signal here? Tension, numbness, activation can reveal where your body's actually storing things. Energy tracking, what drains and expands your energy, being aware of that. Your reaction patterns, where do you have disproportionate responses, because those are potentially showing you triggers to still work on, versus maybe calm reaction patterns where you go, oh yeah, this is a space where I feel really supported. Your physical symptoms that we've talked about. If you have chronic illness or any reoccurring illness, that can absolutely be a thing to look at. And then breathing patterns, as I mentioned earlier, the breath, if you're holding the breath, you don't feel like you can breathe, there's probably a signal there for you to look at. But the bottom line is to remember that your body is keeping the score, and your body is the number one tool to communicate with when it comes to like, am I living a life in alignment with what I want? Am I living a life in alignment with what is healthy for me? If so, my body's going to tell me that. So Let's talk about these limiting beliefs. Some signs that you might need to uproot them. And again, we're going to talk about gentle uprooting. We're going to do a little activity at the end. I'm going to guide you through a meditation as per usual. So let's just brainstorm. What are the signs that you might need to uproot something? What are the signs that somewhere in there, something's got to give? The physical stuff, the chronic tension, the unexplained symptoms, and energy depletion that does not improve when you rest. These are all warning signs that your body is trying to give you to say, pay attention. Something is running in the background here, in the root system, in the foundation, that is having this ripple effect. Your emotional state. If you're constantly looping the same feelings again and again and again and again, and they're not great feelings, and you're really not happy, you're not doing the shadow light dance that I like to talk about, you're just spinning in the shadow, that's a sign something might need uprooted. Relational patterns. If you find yourself in the same painful relationship dynamics again and again and again and again and again with people, there's probably a subconscious limiting belief running about relationships. So it might be time to take a look at that and see where that is coming from. Success patterns, whether that is that you sabotage yourself when you get close to your goal, or that you are pushing yourself towards an artificial metric of success and you burn yourself out, or you deplete your resources in striving for success. All of those things would be patterns that probably need uprooted. Healing stagnation. So if you're trying different things, you're trying different therapies, you're trying different approaches, you're doing all the stuff, and you're not seeing the quote unquote results that you're looking for, you might need a different strategy completely, or you might need to go back in and look at what's really running the show underneath the surface that's having this ripple impact. And then finally, what's your nervous system doing? If your nervous system is feeling that chronic activation of anxiety, that chronic deactivation of depression or shutdown, or you're rapidly oscillating between the two of them, that is a sign there's probably some beliefs under the surface running the show. So it's, again, all of these sort of negative symptoms are signs. We want to listen. We want to pay attention. We want to get curious. What's this telling me? What's my body telling me? What is my nervous system activation telling me? What is the rumination telling me? What are my relationships telling me? There's so many different things that we can look at to get curious how we're being impacted. So let's talk a little bit about the nervous system. And today I am going to be teaching you one of my favorite therapy modalities, my favorite ways of looking at limiting beliefs and getting to know what's really running the story underneath the surface. So let's just first talk about the nervous system. So we want to work with the nervous system, not against it. And something that I really, really want to emphasize with this is that we cannot go too hard into trying to quote unquote heal or repair the nervous system. When we do that, it backfires, and I'll tell you a little bit more about why. So first, our protective patterns were developed as our nervous system's own intelligent way to try to keep us safe. So if our nervous system is saying, okay, this has not been safe, here's how I'm going to try to be safe, and then we come in here with a sledgehammer and we're like, no, you're not allowed to be safe, how's our nervous system going to feel? And it's not really that we're not trying to be safe, it's that we're trying to do it in a new and better way and be healthier. But again, our nervous system is not our thinking mind. Our nervous system is in the body. It's far more complex. It's interconnected. There's all these things that can have a ripple impact on it. But if we're just going in there and we're like, I'm going to completely 180 this, I'm going to change everything, it's actually going to backfire, because if we force rather than partner with our nervous system, it will dig in even more. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about this. Your nervous system feels relaxed when it feels heard and respected. I know that sounds weird, like respecting your nervous system. But breathing, for example. So I took a year-long breathwork apprenticeship. We were literally apprenticed to the breath. And I had never done conscious breathing work really before. I had done mindfulness, I'd done tons of meditation, guided meditation, but this was really breath work based on yogic anatomy, based on science, based on all kinds of different things. We were doing really fine-tuned breath work. And I started to just pay attention to my breath, and I noticed how often I was breathing shallowly, how short and quick my breaths were. Like, I was really coming into relationship with my breath, and I'm like, "Ooh, like we're either really breathing hard or breathing really shallow. Like, there's not this depth to the breath." And so the practice became to try and deepen the breath. And in this apprenticeship, it got brought up again that if we try to change and we try to start breathing all the time, really, really deep, the nervous system will actually respond by going, whoa, too much change, too much status quo shifting all of a sudden. I need to dig in harder to how I've been doing it. And we would actually find that people would breathe more shallowly, or they would hyperventilate more because they were trying to force the change too quickly. So for me, the breathing thing to retrain my nervous system was literally like 1 minute a day, or one attempt to hold my breath a little longer at the bottom, which is nervous system regulating. Holding your breath at the top is nervous system activating, but holding your breath at the bottom, it can be more regulating and down regulating. And so, literally, just for like 20 seconds a day, trying to hold my breath a little bit longer. And over time, now I can breathe much more slowly, much more deeply, all of that. But I had to slow it down, not just immediately 10 minutes a day, be doing these deep breaths and these breath holds and all of these techniques, because my nervous system literally would have panicked and set me back. And that's a lot of people. I mean, it's neuroscience and not everyone's running around with neuroscience education. So I get it. But we think that we can switch like that, but our bodies are not built for that. Our bodies are not built for that. Our brains, it's like that greyhound running in a circle in the yard, and it works the same groove in the grass because it's running that. Our brains are like that too. We work the same grooves. So listen to your body, as we've been talking about, and know when it's ready for change. You'll be able to feel like, oh, okay, that breathing this time felt a little more easeful. Maybe I can go a little longer. Oh, I've been staring my limiting beliefs in the face for 5 minutes. I'm starting to feel panicky. I probably need to back off. Next time I go for 6, next time I go for 7, I slowly build up how much capacity I'm spending doing my shadow work. That's what we want. We want to build a ramp, and we want to slowly climb up that ramp. We don't want to try and jump to the top first. Safety before change. New beliefs can only take root when your nervous system feels secure. So you have to go slow, or your nervous system will freak out. That's just how it is. So here is what I was talking about with my favorite technique. I have literally like worksheets on this because I just think it makes so much sense. And it's called the ABCs of CBT. So cognitive behavioral therapy is pretty much the starter pack for therapists that all therapists walk out of college with. And this was not something I learned in college. This was something that I learned down the line when I did mindfulness training, actually. And I was doing mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. And this model came up, and it changed my whole worldview on how I approached triggers. Because there's actually 3 sort of stages to what happens when we're getting triggered. So there is an activating event. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an example here. You are walking down the street. You're in a downtown area, it's a really nice day out, you're out shopping, and you see who you think is one of your really close friends walking down on the other side of the street. They're coming towards you, you're walking, they're walking, and you look over and they look over and you wave at them because you're so excited that you've seen them, and they appear to look right at you and they keep walking. They don't acknowledge you at all. There are a lot of different ways this can go from here. And everything is now based on what belief you are running subconsciously. Okay. That situation could happen to 100 different people, and we would get 100 completely different reactions based on what their beliefs are subconsciously. So you wave at your friend, there's the activating event or the antecedent meaning the situation that happened before. So this is the quote unquote situation. Now, what instantaneously happens is your subconscious responds based on those beliefs. And so your thoughts and interpretations immediately tell you a story about what just happened. Okay. So going back to my story, if I'm running a belief that my friends are all wonderful and I love them all and I can tell that they love me and I feel really good about myself, I'm going to go, well, they must have not seen me. And I'm probably going to go on with my day. But if I have a limiting self belief in there that says, oh, God, what did I do wrong? Why didn't they wave back? Maybe they hate me. Maybe we're not actually friends. What if I believe I'm a fundamentally bad person, right? I'm going to start to run stories in my conscious based on what my subconscious beliefs are telling me. And so we get to see the consequence. And there are three types of consequences. I'm going to just give the three examples here. So there's three types of consequences. And we can only control one of them. So there's the physical consequences and the emotional consequences, and we have no control over these whatsoever. Okay. So you've seen that person walking down the street, you wave at them, they don't wave back. You immediately go, oh my gosh, I've done something wrong. Your chest feels hot and tight. You clench your jaw. You feel nervous. Maybe you start to sweat. Emotionally, you feel anxious, you're scared. Oh no, did I say something wrong, right? You're feeling worried, you're feeling activated now. Those are two of the three types of consequences, the physical and emotional consequences. So it's kind of like all the feelings, whether that's physical feeling or emotional feeling. The third type of consequence is our behavior. The behavior on this whole thing, the A, B, and C, the behavior is the only place we have any control or any say in what happens next. So it is not A that causes C, it's B. It is the beliefs about the event that create the emotional and physical response, not the event itself. Based on our beliefs and based on how we have done our self work, we are going to have that difference in our consequence of behavior. If my belief again is, oh, yeah, my friend just must not have seen me, my behavior is probably going to be like to message them, text them, call them and be like, hey, it's so funny. Like, did you see me on the street perchance? I waved at you, and like reach out and have a conversation. If my belief is I'm a terrible person and my friends hate me, my behavior might be to retreat, to isolate, to hide, to stop talking to them, to be really like paranoid and nag them, like, why didn't you wave at me? And like start telling them a story back, right? We can have all kinds of behavioral consequences, and that's just how we react, what we do in the world. And so when we're very empowered and we're monitoring our stuff and we're able to use these like ABCs, we can actually start to consciously choose different behaviors. Again, you cannot influence the immediate belief that runs through your mind. You cannot influence the immediate bodily and emotional sensations that flood you. But you can influence, okay, well, what do I choose to do? And what do I choose as my behavior? And so my default behavior in the consequence that I invite everyone into is taking a deep breath and going, what just happened? What were my ABCs? I've just been flooded with all this anxiety. Well, what just happened? What belief actually ran through my head? So, another example here, your boss gives you critical feedback. If you have a limiting belief, you might say, I'm a failure, I'll never be good enough. And then you might feel shame and body tension, and you might withdraw from your work. So those would be your consequences. If your boss gives you critical feedback and you feel empowered, you might be going like, okay, I can use this to grow. And so you might be curious, your body might be more relaxed. You might be a little anxious, like, okay, I hope I can grow, right? But you are engaged with it. There's more possibility and empoweredness there. So your body keeps the score of the bees. That's really funny to say. Your body keeps the score of your beliefs, and limiting beliefs create this chronic stress. Empowering beliefs help you stay open and regulated. So before we move on, I just want to reiterate here: A, B, C. A is that activating event, that antecedent that happens out in the wild. You didn't determine it was going to happen, it just happened. You instantaneously have a response internally based on your beliefs in your subconscious system, which then flood your body with reactions or consequences physically and emotionally. And then you have the choice to behave in a way that you want to. Some of us at different times might feel like we didn't have control over our behavior, that getting defensive or yelling or running away or whatever it might have been, crying, that we didn't have a choice over that. And that very well may be true. Sometimes we reach a point of activation where our other faculties might be diminished. But for the most part, we can actively begin to choose to pay attention to these ABCs, to meet ourselves where we're at, to pause, and to try and make a different choice for our behavior. Like, that's where we're very empowered. So these ABCs have been tremendous for me, because if I found myself getting triggered, I'd go, okay, well, what happened? And then what did I immediately believe that set the chain reaction off? So it's about getting curious about what we believe when we're activated, almost like we're rewinding the tape. What happened? We can usually remember the event, the A, but the B happens so subconsciously that we have to slow it down to catch it. So that's my invitation to you, is to really start paying attention, slow it down to catch it. All right. So finally, some earth-based techniques and tips for gentle belief uprooting. Okay. You've got these limiting beliefs in here. What the heck do you do with them? Right? They're there. So what do you do with them? One, actually physically grounding while you are examining your beliefs creates nervous system safety. So you can use the breath. You can go outside and sit on the ground on a picnic blanket. You can take your chair outside. You can physically like anchor and imagine your root systems going down. There's so many different ways to ground. I invite you to look for techniques that work for you. But grounding through the breath, grounding through the feet, through the sits bones, maybe even feeling your interconnectedness with the earth, especially if you have that earth sense gift, just tuning into the consciousness of the earth. Stone and crystal support. I literally have, I couldn't even begin to tell you. I have so many crystals on my desk. We could do crystal show and tell time for the next hour. Different people have different responses to different crystals. But for whatever reason, rocks, stones, minerals, crystals, whatever we want to call them, seem to have an effect on people. Whether it be because they are beautiful, because there really is some energetic exchange happening, because they make us happy, whatever it may be. Earth's minerals as anchoring tools can be absolutely excellent. And you don't have to get fancy. You could literally go find a rock. But having a tangible physical piece of stone and holding it and feeling that earth-based connection can really help support. And of course, if you're doing shadow work and you are in the woo space like me, maybe you look into particular crystal allies or supports. I am a resource there if you ever want any tips and tricks there too. Seasonal release rituals. I love a good burn. I love a good ritual with, full moons are a great time for cleansing. Samhain, of course, is a holiday. That's Halloween time. If you're not familiar with Samhain, the holiday, but that's like the transition point, the witch's new year, if you will. It's a death time and a rebirth time in its own way. I love to do releasing rituals around that as we're going into winter. You might do spring cleaning rituals and release and look at uprooting your limiting beliefs. There's so many ways to play with the symbolism. But again, the earth reminds us to be patient in our transformation. So we really want to remember that. Like, we cannot force it. I think I shared in a recent episode, for me personally, and I am a rapid processor by comparison to a lot of people, and that's not It's not a superior or a shaming, blaming, finger pointing thing. We all process things in different times and ways. But for me, it takes at least a year for any major change to take place. So, right, like that breathwork apprenticeship, thank goodness it was a year, because by the end of the year, I had transformed in my relationship with the breath. I couldn't have done that in a week or even 4 weeks. It's simply not possible. And then I love just this idea of compost. We have a compost heap in our backyard where we take and we put all our scraps. And this thing is practically as successful as the garden. We've got radish pods growing in there. We've got a potato. We might have a pepper. I'm not sure. We have a squash. We've got all these things that are growing out of the old scraps of food that we've thrown there. So imagining taking our limiting beliefs and composting them and allowing them to be scraps to build something else, to me, is really magical. So let's meditate. Let's take some time here to travel our roots and see what might need uprooted today. So I invite you to find yourself comfortable if you want to follow along with me right now. Of course, you can come back to this later. But right here, right now, we're just going to drop into the heart space. Just taking a nice deep breath or two here. I always like to imagine I'm following my breath down into my chest, down into my heart space. And from here, we'll sink even deeper down from the heart, down through the center, the core of the body, down into the root, down into your sits bones, down your legs. Each breath taking you a little deeper, a little further down. It's beginning to spread out into the roots around you. Imagining a root system connecting to the base of your spine and seeing your own energetic roots spreading out. What I'll invite us to do here is to get curious, bringing in a tender, unconditional, loving energy. Just begin to get curious if there is a root in here, a root belief that is contributing to unhealth in the root system, unhealth in your system. Is there a particular limiting belief down here under the surface that's been really impacting you recently? Just noticing if anything grabs your attention, getting curious. Maybe there's just emotional feelings. Maybe there's sensations here. Maybe you're too scared to look. Whatever's coming up here, that's okay. Breathing gently with your beautiful root system. And if you have identified something, a limiting belief, I invite you to imagine, sense, or picture that you go to that particular root and you have tools, you have methods, but to see yourself gently cut that root out, ever so gently, tenderly, compassionately, maybe even hovering your hands over that root to give it back some love. But perhaps just gently cutting away where this belief is impacting the rest of the system. Gently liberating it from the root system so that you can hold it in your hands, so you can look at it. Play with it. Maybe you want to put this in a pot outside of yourself. Maybe you want to keep it alive a little longer so you can understand it more, study it, get to know it. Or maybe you feel ready to gently let it go. Whatever you choose, allowing yourself this process of putting it off to the side, planting it somewhere safe that you can get to know it more, or using the power of fire to alchemize and release this belief so that something else can take its place. Whatever you need here, allowing yourself some moments, some breaths to see that happening, to sense that happening within you. Breathing with your beautiful self. And knowing whether you have alchemized and released through fire or planted this root off to the side, that either way, this is not the end. You've just begun the process of consciously recognizing, looking at, being willing to perceive a limiting belief. Now you get to know yourself more. You get to cultivate healing in your roots, and you get to choose how you continue to move forward. There will be many opportunities to choose for yourself, different paths, to choose to pay attention to what limiting beliefs are arising or running the show. Many potential paths where this belief comes back up again, but you're more aware of it now, able to see it in a new light. Taking a nice breath here, beginning to pull your roots back up into your body, beginning to pull your consciousness, your awareness fully back up into your body through the root, your sit bones, up through your core, back into your heart space. And from your heart space, gently becoming aware of the body, maybe wiggling the fingers and toes. And if you haven't already done so, going ahead and blinking the eyes open to take in your space. Hmm. So let's talk about gentle uprooting versus violent extraction. What I hope that meditation kind of provided was just a idea of bringing compassion into the process of breathing and being and going slow and not using blunt force or a sledgehammer to try and uproot these beliefs. So, violent extraction looks like force, shame, spiritual bypassing to get rid of beliefs, etc. I have seen it so many times. The spiritual bypassing, I am above, I'm beyond this, I'm elevated from this. I just brush it off and there I go. I move on. It's just as bad as shame or force, really, to spiritual bypass in my book. I think that we need to consciously or energetically, it can be unconsciously, but we need to let go of things by acknowledging them rather than trying to pretend they don't exist and shush them away. So gentle uprooting looks like slowly loosening the soil with compassion, slowly looking at the beliefs, getting curious, and creating that nervous system safety, which means deliberately over time, looking beneath the surface and engaging with our shadow, not by force rushing it, but by one little moment at a time. Okay, I journaled about my deepest, darkest shit for 5 minutes. Whew, that was a lot. Okay, maybe next week I'm going to try it again and maybe I just do five more minutes. Okay. Now I can do 5 more minutes in 3 days. Okay. Maybe now I'm ready to go up to 10 minutes to look at this every week. Right? It's this slowly building the ramp up and creating that nervous system safety, not shocking the nervous system into perceiving that we are going to completely overhaul things, because again, that's going to dig it in more. Another huge thing is that we want to have new beliefs ready to go before we remove our old protective ones. Okay, so alcohol. I'm going to use a belief about alcohol. I need to, hell, I need to be drunk to be in this relationship. Yikes. If we feel that way, right? It's big, big sign. But if I believe I need alcohol to exist in this relationship and I try to quit alcohol while still in the relationship, what in the world do we think is going to happen? We're going to probably have another new, potentially even more maladaptive pattern come in. So we might need to be like, with the whole new belief might need to be, I don't deserve to be in relationships where I am having to drink all the time to stay happy. So we want a new belief to take the place of the old one, to be available. We want to identify how we want to believe before we even move on. And then talking timing wise, we want to go with the natural rhythm, not the old protective rhythm, the rushing, the forcing. This is seasonal play. This might be going with the moon, right? I do moon circles every new moon and every full moon so that I can every single month have 2 reliable opportunities to sit in my own rhythm, to clear my energy, to check in on things, all of that. Having community support, super important. If you don't have that community support, if you're running a belief that you are unworthy of support, it's going to be really hard to get going because we can't do things alone. That is a limiting belief that we need to do our things alone. So really knowing who your supports are as you do your self-work. And then finally, your integration, like honoring what your old beliefs have taught you while you're growing something new. So as we wrap up today's talk, I just want to reiterate that limiting beliefs are simply your nervous system's way of trying to protect you. It's a protective form of intelligence. By honoring these patterns as adaptations and working with your body's rhythms, you can create safety that you need in order to sustain transformation. It's very possible to have a transformation instantaneously and then completely backtrack and go backwards. So our nervous system is our ally, not our opponent, but it can certainly feel that way when we feel like we're slogging against the impossible. As we look forward into our next week, your weekly invitation is to consider what limiting beliefs are running the show in your body. Where do you feel them physically? How has that belief protected you in the past? And what was your original wisdom? What earth-based practice could you use to support you in feeling more safe to explore your shadows, to explore your stories and your beliefs, like grounding, going out in nature, doing breath work, etc.? And then what would be possible if this limiting belief you're looking at loosened its grip just 10%? What would you do differently? This is my invitation to you. And to really just be with, again, I want to remind you about those ABCs. I cannot stress the ABCs enough. It has just revolutionized everything about how I would look at my triggers. So again, something happens, an antecedent or a activating event, a belief floods your brain immediately, subconsciously rising to the surface, and your nervous system responds accordingly with bodily sensations and emotional sensations. And the only part that you have control over is your behavior. What do you choose to do in response to all of that information? So if we can slow it down, if we can rewind and go, oh, well, when I saw that person walking down the street, I thought, wow, your friend can't even wave at you. What a piece of junk you are, right? And then it suddenly makes sense why your body felt heavy and tense and hot and all of these things. And we can go, oh, well, what would I have rather believed there instead? And slowly over time, making these mental updates. First, it takes noticing, then it takes doing something with it, taking some form of action, whether that be doing shadow work, journaling, talking about it with someone, to do something with it. and identify what new thing, what new belief, what new behavior we would like to take its place, so that we're not carving out a hole and then it being open and empty and just sucking in the exact same energy again into that space, because that's usually what we do. So, just as a look ahead, next time we will be wrapping up the Earth and Stories section of the season's framework here in Elements of Success. We will be talking about replanting our garden of self. What a beautiful time as we're at the peak of summer as I'm recording this. We'll be looking at what empowered beliefs we do want to have. So if you're like, okay, I've identified a limiting belief, next time we'll be identifying some empowering beliefs you'd like to put in place. We will be exploring some EFT tapping because it's one of my favorite techniques for integration. We'll talk about seasonal rituals for ongoing self work. And we will plant those new seeds of your empowering story next time. So I hope this has been useful to you, exploring the way that our limiting beliefs impact us and why it's so important that we uproot them over time. Again, not by forcing it, but through gentle compassion. And yeah, I love you all so much. And if you have anything that you do want to see me teach on in this series, please don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, I will be back in 2 weeks with replanting your garden of self. So feel free to reach out in the meantime. I hope that this nourished you in some way and that you feel more liberated, more not alone in the fact that we all have these limiting beliefs, many of them universal, and that we can do something with them. It's just about going slow and really making sure we have the supports in place. So until next time, my friends, I'm Safriana Luna, the Queer Spirit Guide. I love you. I see you. I believe in you, and I'm cheering you on. Bye for now.